Welcome everybody to this tutorial where we'll be creating this slime game where you can see when I pick up an apple, my score increases on the bottom left. Here, I picked up an apple and my score increased to 10. And you can see that there's really cool lighting that we'll look at throughout the video later. But the basic idea is that we'll go through the player, we'll go through how to create a consumable, and then we'll look at the environment. So let's get right into it. All right, so let's head over to the editor and create a new game. We're going to use the blank template. So let's use this and we can call this best slime game ever. Once we're in our game, there's a few things we want to change. And the first thing we're going to do is import a new player and some new assets. So the first thing we can do is head over to the homie, go to upload cell. We're going to go to upload from computer on the tab over here, and make sure that you have this selected. If you want to select this, go for it. We're going to upload. Once you've found your files that you want to add to your game, you can see here that we have a slime version 2. Now, all these files will be down in the description down below, so don't worry. So we have quite a few assets in here. So mainly we have the apple and the slime and the fence right here. So we're going to use the slime v2. We're going to open this up and we're going to submit once it's finished loading. Here we go. Now you can see we have our slime. Awesome. We've now added our slime to our game. So if I save and apply, you will now see my guy is really, really big. And that is because we need to publish and save. Let's try that. Once you've done that, you can now see that we have the slime, but it is really, really big. So what we want to do here is we want to make him a little smaller. And the way we do that is we go to entities, we go to the homie, and everything is done in here. Now, I want you to guess, where would we do that in here? Where would we edit the actual body of the player? That's right, the body types. So let's go to the body types and we can take a look at some of this. Now you can see here, it gives us the original, and we have the original, which is good, but I want half of this, and half of this will be 103.35, and I can do the same thing here. And then for the depth, I will do 72.5. And there we go. Now for the allow sleep, we're going to actually turn this to false. Then collides with props, we're going to turn that on. And that is basically it. So that's it for our player. We can keep this on rectangle. If you want to change it to circle, yes, you can, but I'm going to keep it on rectangle as it doesn't really make a huge difference. Now I'll save, and immediately you can see our player is a lot smaller, which is perfect. Now we want to change the direction so that it actually moves based on our control keys instead of our mouse. Let's head over to the controls tab in our homie and change a few things in here. Now, the first thing we want to change is down here, we have rotate to face mouse cursor. We want to turn that off because we're going to be using, well, our keyboard. All right, so let's scroll up a little bit and see our key bindings. In our key bindings, we can add new key bindings and we can select W, save, A, S, and D. There we go. Now we have WASD, and we're going to actually be running a script in each of these. So if you actually click in this, you can see we can run a script. But we don't have any scripts yet. Well, we do, but we're going to write our own scripts in a minute. All right, so now what we can do here is when we scroll down and actually select for these flip sprite, we're going to select the towards mouse. Now you can see the other thing is actually gone as well. All right, so now let's go to the general tab and scroll down, and we can actually get rid of the health because we don't need that. And we're going to scroll down just a little bit more, and I'm going to change the inventory size to 3 and hit save and apply. All right, so the next thing we can do and take a look at is the scripting. Now in our scripting, we have scripts. What are these scripts? Well, they're essentially pieces of paper with code on it, or a set of instructions that we can use and run whenever we want. Now, there's many ways to trigger this. There's two main ways. The first one is by adding a condition trigger on the top here, or by running it manually, which is what we'll be doing for the direction of the player. So one script we can create here is we'll hit new script. We'll rename it by double clicking right here and say rotate A. And then in here, what we can do is rotate it on the A, right, which is the left-hand side. So we're going to add a new action. We're going to search up rotate entity to face radiance. Here, we're going to select the entity, which is going to be homie, for this entity. Why this entity? Well, when someone is playing our game, we want that person to select their computer. If we were to do homie, that would select and change all the homies, right? Meaning the player, right? The homie is the player. Maybe we'll change the name in just a second. The number we'll rotate to is going to be 4.7 because this is a radiance number. We can give it a very accurate number by putting all these, or you can just put 4.7. All right, let's hit OK and hit OK. And now what we'll do is we're going to copy this script and then paste it 3 times. And this one, let's change this to rotate W, this to rotate S, and this to rotate D. Now, in each one of these, I want you to try to take a second and see if you can figure out which radians number we would put in here. If not, that's okay. Let's do it together right now. So in the W, it would actually be 0 because this is the default. And S, it's going to be 3.14 pi, 3.14. Write in more digits if you'd like, but I'm just going to put 3.14. And then for D, it's going to be 1.57. 08 if you'd like. And hit OK, and there we go. We can move this down if we'd like to mix with all these. So now we have WASD. We can hit save and apply. We'll go back to our homie. We're going to go back to the controls. We're going to go to W pressed. And now we're going to run the W script. Now I want you to go through all of these and do the same. All right, so we've attached each script to the W or the controls, the key binding. So rotate D on D, rotate S on S, etc. All right, so now we can hit save and apply here. And now save and apply, close this. And now we can test this and we can see it works. It rotates based on which key binding I press. Awesome. Now let's go back to the script and we're going to add one more script. Add new script. Now, if you didn't know, you can right click here on the blank space or you can hit new script. We're going to create a script called pick up food. Pick up food. Now, in here, we're going to add an if statement. In this if statement, we have 3 things. An if statement, which is going to ask us, hey, if this is happening, let's do this. Otherwise, let's do this. That's the action, and then this is the otherwise. Okay. Now, in the condition, I want you to think, what do we check here? Well, this might not be super intuitive, but we're going to actually be checking to see an item type comparison. So we're going to essentially check to see if the item, so over here, we're going to put our food under the items. The reason it's not intuitive is because we haven't created the item yet, right? So let's go over here to item type of entity. So we're going to actually select a function called item type, and then here, this entity, perfect. We're going to check this entity of the entity that we just picked up. Now you're wondering, why did we leave this empty? Well, that's because we haven't created our item yet. So let's go over to the item tab and create a new item. Now here we have a few options, and we're going to select the consumable. Now we can rename this to food, and we're going to go through all the settings of this later, so we're just going to give it the food name, save and apply. Now we can go back to our if statement here, go over here to this guy, and we can actually select constant food. We don't need to select anything else for the functions. We hit OK, hit OK, hit OK. And now in our do function, we want to add some stuff. What do we want to do? The first thing we want to do is make unit pick up item. So what we're going to be doing in our game here, to kind of give you a picture, is we're going to actually pick up the apple, then consume it or eat it right away. So it's going to look as if it didn't go straight to my inventory, it just went straight to my score. So to the player, to the person playing the game, it's going to seem as if I picked up the apple and it increased my score. But what we're going to actually do in code is pick up the item, and then we're going to use it. So here we need to make unit pickup item, where the unit is going to be this entity, and the pickup item is going to be the last pickup item over here. Yeah, so we're going to change this to last triggering item, last item that was triggered. Now, what is the last item triggered? Well, that's the question over here, the triggers. So you can see it says the last triggering item. Okay? Now, what does any of this mean? Well, the trigger is something that happens when an item enters this entity's sensors. So that's the trigger that's going to run this script. So previously, here in these scripts, we did those manually, but this one is going to happen when an item enters this entity's sensor. So the entity is the homie, or let's actually change this guy's name, maybe hero. There we go. Now it's a better name, hero. But our hero is the entity sensor, right? So the sensor is going to be within the hero. And then in here, it's going to check to see if the entity that we just picked up is food. If it is, we'll make this entity pick up the last trigger item, which is going to be the food. Now we do need to do one more thing, which is respawn food. So what we can do is create item at position. So this is pretty easy. We just create the item food at position, random position in region. Now here's a problem. We don't have the region yet. So what we're going to do is we're going to cancel. We're going to just click OK so we don't actually delete this code, but we're going to leave this red for now. Now let's hit save and apply. And let's close this and let's set up our scene. All right, so before we start playing around with our maps, let's add a new folder here called props. See, someone just joined our game, but that's okay. Now here, we're going to create a new prop, and we're going to call this fence. In the body type, I'm going to change a few things. Now here you can see the original is 64 by 64, meaning we have a square fence. Now that makes absolutely no sense. We don't want a square fence. So we're going to extend this by 190 by 26. And the depth, we're going to give it to 64. And the Z index, we're actually going to change this to floor, because this is the floor. It's supposed to be on the floor. It's not supposed to be a wall, right? Unless you want it to be. Now let's scroll down, and we should be good here. So here we can set this to false, actually. So we'll turn off the sensors. And yeah, that's it. So let's save. And let's just make sure there's nothing here we need to do. So let's save this. Actually, I just realized we forgot to give it a sheet. So let's upload our fence model and then hit submit. Now we can save and apply one more time. Go back to our map section. What we'll do now is we're going to draw our region. We're going to select the region tool. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to move my camera by holding shift and middle click. I can move my camera like so, zoom out a little bit, and middle click and rotate my camera. I'll be right above. And now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to draw, oops, need to select my region tool one more time. And now I'm going to draw a region here, like so, and I'm going to name this food respawn. Hit OK, and now we have our region. And we need a few more. So first, what we'll do is we'll create a region right here. Call this region 1. I'm just going to copy this, save, and create another region by selecting the region tool. Now that's a little too thin, so let's do that one more time. The shortcut is R, by the way, so you can just hit R to make it a little easier for yourself. And there we go. So we'll name this region 2. Hit save. So one more time, we're going to go from here all the way to the top. Region 3. going to move up a little bit like so by hitting Shift middle click and region 4. And for some reason, we can see that our fence is way too big. So let's head over to our Entities tab and see what we did. Right, that is why our entity thing is really, really big because of this number. So let's change this to 190 by 26. Yeah, so this is 64. And let's hit save one more time, save and apply. Okay, so our fence works. We have it here, but let's just publish and save and republish just in case. All right, so now when we go back to our map, we can see our fences that we added previously. We can just select those and delete them. All right, now let's select my other fence here. I can copy this and paste it by hitting Control C, and then click, 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 and click. Now we'll just do this all around. Now for the left and right hand side, what you might want to do here is click once. I'm going to unselect, select it. We're going to hit E, or sorry, not E, W, and rotate this 90 degrees. I'm just kind of guessing. You can kind of inspect it to see if you're getting the 90 degrees right. And then we can just hit Control C, and now we have the right-hand side. All right, you can see I just kind of roughly put them all around. I have a few gaps, but that's okay. You can see I have one fence kind of far away, so let's select that guy, delete it. All right, there we go. Now we have our game. Now, do feel free to add more to your game. I want you to now add some other entities, some other props, maybe some other stuff that you want to add. Now, you can see that my map didn't update, so let's hit save and apply and republish. All right, once you've republished, we now have our grid. All right, so let's head back to our Entities tab. And what we're going to now do is finish off our player. In our scripts, I'm going to go to the pickup, random position over here, and we're going to change this to the food respawn. And we can hit OK, and we're done. Save and apply, and that's it. We have now finished, quote unquote, the player. All right, now that we've done all that, we want to actually make some food and some score and some stuff like that. Now let's head over to the script on the top left, and we're going to create a new script here called spawn foods. So hit new script, spawn food, and I'm going to tell you what we're going to do, or what this script will do, and I want you to try it first. So every second, we're going to check to see if the number of the food items essentially in the game are less than 1. And you can change that number if you'd like, but I'm going to do less than 1. If it is, then we're going to create a food in a random position in the food respawn region. Okay, so I want you to try to pause the video and try this yourself, but let's do this together now. So the trigger is every second, in case you kind of got that when I was saying every second. And then the add action, we're going to add an if statement. And inside of this condition, we're going to check a number comparison. The comparison here is the number comparison. And over here on the left-hand side, for the functions, we're going to select number of items present. I'm going to hit OK, go over here, and we're going to do less than. And then over here, we're going to change this to 1. Hit OK, hit OK, and that's it. Now, to make this a little nicer for ourselves, we're actually going to go to pick up food. We're going to copy this code right here for this line and just paste this in the do. Now we can create a food at a random position. And that's it. So now we hit save for both of these, and just close. And let's republish this and see if it works. Hey, you can see that it works, but our apple isn't an apple, and we can't really collide with it yet. So let's take a look if we can actually fix our apple now. All right, now let's head back to the food. We're going to go to upload cell sheet, and we're going to upload the apple. Here we go. Let's open this up and submit. All right, now we have our apple here, but even if I hit play, and you can test this out, you won't see an apple. Now the reason is, and over here for the inventory icon, let's just delete this. And the reason is because in the body type, now there's selected and dropped. Dropped meaning it's on the floor, and that's what we care about. Selected, it's there, you can change it, but it doesn't really matter. Now the drop over here, or sorry, yeah, this is the dropped. This means it's on the floor, and we actually want the original to be the width and the height and the depth. So we're going to copy paste these values over here. Now all of these you can keep the same. Now all of these, we're going to change the sleep to false. And over here you can see it collides with, well, not unit. So let's change that to the unit and unselect the wall. The linear damping, I'm going to put to 3. And on the bottom, we're going to turn on the billboard effect. Here we go, enabled. And now let's hit save. We're going to save and apply. There's some other settings we'll change, but we want to check this out. And now let me save and publish. All right, we now have our apple. Now you can see I can collide with it, but it doesn't exactly work the way we intend it to. Let's go back to our entities, our food, and let's change a few more things. All right, so in our controls, we're going to go to rotate over here, set this to false. In our consumable, we're not going to change anything here. In our bonus, we're going to actually unselect this, and we're going to want to add an attribute for our player. That attribute is not any of these. It's going to be a score attribute. So let's do that in just a second. But first, let's take a look at what else we need to change. Next, in our extra, let us now, over here is pick up unused. This is important so that we can actually pick up the item and then use it right away before it looks like it's actually in our inventory. Now we can turn on the shadow if you'd like, but we'll come back to this anyways. Now, over here, we can make sure this is 70. I'm not sure why it doesn't say 70 anymore. But over here for the bonus, you can see we don't have a player attribute. So let's go to our environment, and we want to add a score to our game. Now, where would we do that? Well, that would be in the attributes tab over here. We're going to add new, hit score, and by default, I actually want the initial value to be 45 over here and over here. Now, the reason for this is slightly to debug a little bit, because we're going to change these in a different area. All right, so now that should be it. Let's just double check. Over here, display value, we're going to put this to true. And that's it. So we'll save, close, and over here for the player attribute, let's turn on the score and give it a 1 bonus. There we go. We're going to add our score when I consume my apple, right? Because it's a consumable item. All right. Okay, so now the reason that we're not able to collide with the apple is because if you recall in our script here for the pickup food script, the trigger to use this is when an item enters this item's or entity's sensor. So this entity is the hero. But what is the sensor? Well, the sensor is in the body types. If we scroll down, you can see here that we left this on false. So we're going to put that to true. And now let's hit play, hit save and apply, and save and apply. Let's close this, publish. Now we can go to our apple and test it out. Let's see if it just gets destroyed. Okay, so it still doesn't work. You can see that we passed through it now, which is a little better, but we still don't collide with it. So what's going on? All right, so in our script, we actually made a little mistake. So in the pickup food, here in the if item type of this entity, that doesn't actually make sense because we're not checking this entity of food. We're trying to check the last triggering item of what's being picked up. So make sure we change that to last triggering item. And if you can see here, actually, I added a debug print essentially. So this will actually create text, but let's delete that for now. That was just for me. Now we can hit save and apply. And let's see if this works. There we go. It works. We can now collide with the apple. And every time I hit it, I eat it, and then it respawns. Now you're wondering, what about the score? Well, what about the score? Well, if we go to player types and we go to human player, we can actually assign attribute score to our player. Now here's where we actually change the initial value, the range, and the max. We're going to change this to maybe like 10,000. And we can display, hit save, close, back to play. And if you republish it, you will now see the score on the bottom right. And now it works perfectly. So we can see every time I pick up an apple, it eats it right away. So you don't even see it pop up in the inventory. And then our score goes up. All right.